make your work accommodate your life, not the other way around. And it's always something that I had strived for. That was a goal, to have work be fulfilling for me on a personal level and not for me to constantly be pivoting personally in order to satisfy work.
Welcome to Empowerista, female entrepreneurs finding freedom and fulfillment in their life and career. I'm your host, Alex Wehrley, the founder and CEO of Empowerista, an award-winning producer and national TV host, seen on platforms like Business Rockstars, Entrepreneur.com, and Amazon Prime. I am so excited to share my candid conversations with successful women as they reveal the tips and truths they've learned on their entrepreneurial journey. My guest today is Kathryn Brolin, the founder of Midheaven Denim. After spending years in the modeling industry, Kathryn recognized a niche of women like her who found it difficult to find inseams long enough to fit their lengthy frames. Kathryn created Midheaven Denim to fill this void with the mantra of take back your height, emphasizing the importance of feeling your best, truest, and most confident self. Kathryn is married to Hollywood actor Josh Brolin and created her business to give her more freedom to travel with him and their daughter. Let's take a listen. Your life is just so interesting, and I love that you have created a life that you love and is in accordance with your values. So before we dive into all of that and what life looks like today as a mom and a businesswoman and a wife traveling all over the world, let's take it back to the very beginning.
Okay.
So you had been researching creating this company for a while. I know you have roots in modeling, and that was a really big inspiration for creating this company.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
That's right. So, yeah, I kind of joke about how I've been doing market research for my company since I was a kid, because I really have. Midheaven was created to service the tall woman. I'm 5'11". A lot of the people that I, started to become friends with while I was in my modeling years were also very tall. So I found myself sitting in these rooms with these girls on castings, or, the conversation would just gently hit that topic. Where are you getting your clothes? Because I'm getting really tall really fast. I can't find clothes that fit me. Primarily jeans. Everybody wants a great pair of jeans. So I was having a hard time finding pants that were long enough for my legs. It was as simple as that. It was a simple need. I couldn't really find a company that I could stay loyal to that would provide that really great fit and also the length that I was looking for. So I just started to think about this idea for what could become a company one day. I would, see a really tall style come out from one of my favorite companies, and it would be like a 36-inch inseam, and I'd be like, yes, okay, so that's the company for me. And then they would discontinue that style. And that was happening more and more. And so I was like, okay, so there is a market out there. There is this tall woman that's not being serviced. Otherwise, those companies wouldn't come out with their long, super long jeans. But there isn't one company where it's just that.
That is their
jeans.
niche, serving that group.
Yeah, so I decided to, really keep it kind of in the back of my head about something that I could potentially do one day. I, of course, didn't know when or if. Obviously, it's very involved starting a company anyway, but the garment industry is so intense. I knew nothing. I worked in film after I graduated college. So life was just happening. I was getting a job, and then I was getting another job, and my professional life just started kickstarting in this amazing industry of film. So I kind of just left the idea for a little while. Again, knew nothing about fashion other than what I put on my body, what I like. But I was always keeping an eye out for companies that were going to service the tall woman, and few and far between, even still.
Yeah, it's so interesting because so much of it is timing.
Yeah.
Where you had this idea for a long time, and it's this fine balance between not procrastinating, but then also letting things just to unfold and evolve. And it sounds like that's what you did, just let it kind of unfold organically. And then there was a moment where you were like, all right, now is the time to really pursue this and turn it into a business. What was that moment? Yeah, what was that moment?
Falling in love.
Oh.
That was the moment. I mean, it's, when you have somebody very close to me said, make your work accommodate your life, not the other way around. And it's always something that I had strived for. That was a goal, to have work be fulfilling for me on a personal level and not for me to constantly be pivoting personally in order to satisfy work. So, I fell in love with my husband. He travels for work. We were traveling together. I was with him a lot of the time. And that's essentially when I started to see this really beautiful opening for what would become Midheaven, because I finally had the distance from my life in LA to focus on it. So when we'd be on location, I just started thinking how could this happen? Where would I start? And we came back to Santa Monica. We were in Santa Monica one day. I hadn't really gotten to know the neighbors down the street. For some reason, we struck up a conversation on the sidewalk. Turned out they had been in the denim business for 30 years and said, we could introduce you around town. And I said, thank you, God, for my message. Now's the time. So they took me downtown. They introduced me to everybody that I now work with. They really showed me the ropes, and that kickstarted everything. And we launched in January of last year, and it's just been a full moving train since then. So
there's so much about what you just said that I love, but I have to comment on the fact that I think so often in entrepreneurship, we feel like we have to be in this kind of masculine energy that's aggressive and push and make it happen. But you were really just kind of surrendering, and there was this perfect contact that came into your life that introduced you to the right people. And a lot of times that's all it takes, is just kind of for the stars to align. And, of course, it's a balance between surrendering and paying attention to those kind of opportunities and, of course, having the work ethic to make things happen. But it just sounds like it was really synchronicity for you.
Yeah, being gentle with yourself and being gentle with needing and wanting to pivot. We all set out with our goals. Most of us have goals. There was a time in my life where I wasn't sure what the goal was, which I could talk about for a full other segment. Figuring out where you're supposed to fit, figuring out what resonates, how difficult that is when somebody's in their mid-20s and things are picking up in some ways, but you're not sure if it's the best way.
Yeah, I love the idea of reverse engineering what it is that we want in life. So you knew that you wanted this freedom to be able to travel with your husband. And at the same time, you had this vision and passion for creating Midheaven Denim. And it's interesting because a lot of people would go, well, having a retail company that I know that you have a physical location could be challenging to be able to leave it and go travel and trust the people who are working for you. But a lot of times when you just have that intention and end goal in mind, you can get creative to make multiple things that might not seemingly fit together actually work. So give me a little behind the scenes of how that does work.
Okay. You said a big word there. That's trust. Trust is something that I have had to cultivate in business. Trust that shipment is going to arrive on time and that production will stay on schedule. Trust that I am paying the right people to do the job that I hope that they're going to be able to do. Trust that I've hired the right employees to carry out my vision while I am on the road. I have such an amazing team of people, and I've been through working with people that don't have a vision that aligns with mine, having the trust in myself to say, okay, it's time to let that person go. It's okay to be kind of out there in no man's land looking for the replacement who's going to fill their shoes. So it is about the trust of one's team, because when I do have to pick up and leave, or I want to pick up and leave, I can know that I've put certain players in place to be ready for that momentum to shift onto them, and that they'll be able to carry the train moving forward in my absence. Of course, I'm never away from my email. I'm never away from making the big picture decisions. But the little things, which are just as important as the big things, by the way, stay moving and they stay working without me being there every step of the way.
Yeah, because of course you can lead long distance. So,
That's right.
So when you are traveling, for example, what does your role look like? How do you make sure that you are still the leader and visionary?
So because we have our pop-up store, which is a whole different ballgame, retail, which has been such a an amazing blessing, an amazing gift for us to be able to communicate directly with our customers face to face, and also see the product on people, be able to make adjustments to our fit and, and even our aesthetic by seeing it on girls who walk through the door. That being said, when I leave that space. So the people that I have in place to work at that space, that's on them. They keep that working. They keep that wheel oiled. But all of the big picture things, all of the emailing, all of the tracking, even customer relations, I do myself. And that was one of the reasons why I kickstarted Midheaven when I did, because I left and I needed to have something that could go on the road with me and that I could continue to work on from afar no matter where in the world I was. So that's what I do. My position doesn't really change given my location. And that was one of the objectives. And I think just organically it happened like that.
Well, and a retail company is so different in this day and age because the majority of things can take place over the internet, like customer service. So even if you're in a different time zone, you can still get back to them in a reasonable time.
That's right. And my company is mostly online. That was our original business model. We wanted to be direct to consumer. We weren't really interested in going the wholesale route in the beginning. Given people's requests, we have gone down that road and we've started exploring certain strategic partnerships with certain boutiques that we love. That being said, we're not trying to be in every store. We really like to deal personally with boutiques as well as customers. Our online business is still the cornerstone of our business. It's still the most money we make is there.
Hey, super quick, if this episode is inspiring you, I'd be so very grateful if you did any or all of the following. Subscribe to the podcast, review the podcast, or take a screenshot of this episode and post it to your Instagram stories and tag @Empowerista so I can share your post. Your support seriously means so much and will allow me to continue making episodes. Lastly, if you'd like to read the key points from today's interview, head to empoweristapodcast.com for show notes. Well, that's a really important thing as an entrepreneur is making sure you choose a business model that does support the lifestyle that you want. So going back to, you wanted to have the freedom to be in any location you wanted to be. So getting creative of how can I take this, tangible business and put it majority online. You obviously did that very well.
Thank you. Yeah, and there's a lot of different things to think about. You have to, it's one of the things that I'm working on is how to deal in business the same way that I deal as a designer. Sometimes those two don't go hand in hand. Sometimes we are so focused on the business and driving the business forward that we forget that we're working on a new collection, and we constantly need to be providing interesting content for people to attach themselves to and look at and say, oh, it looks really good on that body type. I haven't seen it on that body type. Maybe I will give Midheaven a shot. They say it takes 6 to 10 impressions for somebody to buy a product. I mean, think about that. That's a magazine ad. That's a billboard. You're seeing it on Instagram. You're seeing it on a label. And when somebody turns around, that you see it on the back of their jeans. And every single one of those things is an impression that we have to work on, pay for. That is a business all in itself.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about business is it's part analytical and it's part creative. And I love the marketing and branding side of things. What do you like about that, and what seems to be working well for Midheaven?
I really love, and it's a question that we get a lot, what sets your brand apart from other denim lines? Because it is a very competitive space, especially in LA. So people say, what sets your brand apart? The fact that we do service everybody now, no matter your height, but we really started out with pinpointing that tall woman that hasn't exactly found a brand that they love that has all of the elements that were important to me: fit, quality, a sustainability aspect, the fact that I could get it very quickly and return it very quickly if it didn't fit. All of these certain qualities I was looking for in a brand. And
you were the customer, so it made it probably a lot easier.
Customer. Yeah. So I think that having a direct, a very specific demographic that I was trying to service,
a niche,
very specific niche, was what was the difference for me. It makes everything that I do that much easier, and it helps to inform what I do, even as far as the branding goes. I mean, I have this brilliant employee who I love who said, why don't we make the back belt loop an M for Midheaven? Like, even those little tiny details, I get super jazzed up by, because it's all in service to the tall woman, first and foremost. That being said, everybody comes into the store with their friend or their sister or their mother who's not tall. Where are the jeans for me? I was like, oh gosh, we're neglecting an entire group of people. Let's service everybody. So we ended up starting to make jeans in both, a regular inseam and a tall inseam. So we're ahead of the jump there.
And I know that you really want women to own their height no matter what their height is, and just feel confident. It's so interesting because I'm a very average height lady. And so like whenever I have a couple tall friends and I'm like, oh, your height is beautiful. But growing up, they felt self-conscious about it. And I'm sure not being able to have clothes that fit just right, and, sometimes towering over people, that can absolutely, even though we glorify height in our society, I mean, models obviously are so tall and beautiful, even they can be insecure. So I would imagine that that probably played into your brand a little bit, huh?
Exactly. Any tall girl that's going to watch this will understand what that feels like, to want to hunch your shoulders and come down into conversation, and to, try and be just part of the average height for a moment, so you can connect on eye level with people. What that does to your psyche when you're hunched over, you're not being proud of your body, not being proud of your height and holding your shoulders back. What that does was something that I had contended with since I was a young teenager. Mm-hmm. So Midheaven was really kind of a way to hold myself accountable to being proud of my body and to wearing heels, and knowing that I was going to be 6'3" and people were going to say, God, you're tall. That was such a dig before. Now it's a major compliment. And I just like to cultivate that confidence in other people that may have that waning, because of those types of comments, or because of that self-esteem issue that can come along with being very tall. So that's essentially where the term Midheaven came from. It's why I call my company Midheaven. The Midheaven is the highest point the sun reaches in its daily traverse of the visible sky, and I loved what that represented from an emotional standpoint. I was like, gosh, I love what that does to me when I read the definition of that term. It makes me want to hold my shoulders back. It makes me want to rise to that occasion. It makes me want to find my personal midheaven, as I call it, and go forward with this personal confidence in what I've been given. Being tall is not necessarily a great thing for people, and I wanted to start a company that really illustrated that it should and is a great thing.
Yeah, it's so powerful when we own what makes us different. So let's talk to the woman who's watching or listening right now. We all have something that makes us different. And I think as women especially, a lot of times we don't want to own what makes us stand out. We want to just kind of fit in. It feels safer that we're not going to be judged as much. But what would you say to them about just owning whatever makes them different?
Oh my gosh, now's the time. I mean, look at everything that's happening in our society. It's like, use your voice, use your gifts, use your talents, use your tools that set you apart, because those are the things that drive forward. That's the thing that molds our new reality, right? So yes, trends happen, but usually the people we pay attention to are the ones that are existing outside.
And the ones that can make a big impact. I think sometimes it can feel like by standing out, we're being selfish or self-centered, but really I think that that's where the beauty happens, where we can really inspire and motivate change when we own what makes us different.
It's true. And that's why, for instance, size inclusivity is such an important part of my business. We offer size 24 to 34. We really wanted to cover a big group of people based on what's real, what's happening now. Just because, the 6 foot tall, 110 pound girl can wear Midheaven does not mean that the 5'9" or 6'4", 200-pound girl can't wear Midheaven, you know? It's like we wanted to include a bunch of people because that's life, that's real, right? So I think paying attention to those reality checks in society, you know, we're not all trying to be one thing. We are actually so many different things. Let's find companies and build companies up that service the real woman, that service the real person. That's what inspires me. It's like, let's take this little dream, let's attach it to people, let's have it not be exclusive. Let's have it service us so we can go forward in life and focus on life stuff.
Yeah, not only is it the right thing to do, the brand ultimately benefits too, because that makes the woman feel so much better about herself and therefore builds a connection with the brand and really can affect their bottom line in a great way as well. So that's the bonus of doing something that's already the right thing to do.
Of course. And of course we want to move forward. We want to grow. We want to... We're going to launch our petites line next year. And, you know, Midheaven is all about servicing the girl that fits outside of the typical demographic, right? The typical, parameter in any way, you know? So it's about finding those girls and saying, hey, we're here for you. We really want to help you. And by the way, you don't have to sacrifice quality or fit or any of your ethics around sustainability for it. So we're here. Yeah. We're here for you. Beautiful.
Yeah. So I know that you are a new mom.
Yes.
And you mentioned that once you had that little girl, everything changed. What do you mean by that?
I mean, people had told me that things were going to change and that my priorities were going to change. I didn't realize to the extent of that, how much that was going to happen. I think having a baby makes everything you do come into question on why you're doing it, whether or not it's worth it. Any moment that I'm spending away from my baby better be damn worth it, because...
Well, then I'm especially honored that you're spending time with me.
Well, of course, any chance I get to talk about, my other baby of sorts, which is Midheaven, I feel it deserves that, But yeah, she's amazing. She makes everything worth it. She makes every moment of waking up in the middle of the night with her worth it. She's just the coolest kid. My husband and I talk about it all the time. She is literally the coolest kid we've met. She's 9 months old now. She's so great. We have such a great time with her. But yeah, it's caused my life to restructure a bit.
And I've actually heard moms say a lot that because they get more focused, that can be really helpful because they kind of trim the fat and remove the fluff and really focus on what matters. And sometimes they see the needle move even more. Have you experienced that at all?
Yes. Business is emotional. It is emotional. People who say that it's not are lying. You can get very emotionally invested in what you're doing, as you should if you're devoting any sort of significant time in your life to doing anything. But I think what having a baby has done for me is to become a little less emotional in the tiny things, knowing when to give something maybe my more full attention than, okay, I'm just going to let this thing be. There isn't a huge difference between this and that. Therefore, I'm just going to make my first thought best thought and go forward with that instead of I'm going to take the week to think about this one, which I was known to do in the very beginning of starting my business. Every single thing felt razor's edge fragile. And now
something that should take 5 minutes takes a half hour
that's
or more.
Right, or maybe more days, And now it's like, well, you're running a business, but first and foremost, you're a mother. Get these business things, these decisions made, and get back to your girl.
And I know sometimes you even bring her into the office.
Oh yeah. She has spent many a day in a factory with me.
I love it.
Yes. So she, and thank God we've got a malleable child, and she's been awesome. But it's great because it's empowering for me to have a career. It feels good to go to bed at the end of the day knowing that I've done a really good job and that I'm driving this company forward and that I have really great people who care, that work with me in making this dream come true more and more every day. I love being with my child, though, and it is about that. So, I have rules. I have rules. At the end of a day, I put my phone away. I don't look at my computer. It is for her. That time is for her. We do bath, we do books, we have time, me and my husband both. Put her down. Those are the moments, as well as getting up and feeding her and like making sure that I'm super present for her. Those are the things that I care most about. In the same way as when I was launching Midheaven, I cared whether or not somebody's chin was here or here in a photo before I launched it on my first campaign. I cared, and I still care. So it's about devoting time where my heart lies.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's the perfect note to end on. And thank you so much for your time away from your little girl and your other baby, Midheaven.
Thank you.
And sharing your story. It's truly inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Well, that's it for today's show. As a reminder, show notes are available at empoweristapodcast.com. And I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe, review, or share this podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and have an amazing week.